And of course, today is an important day because, as the front page of the Daily Telegraph says, private schools to defy Treasury over fees. This is a really interesting story because Labour has said that essentially they're putting VAT on private schools because they're going to use all this money to fund new teachers. So they say they're going to recruit 6,500 extra teachers. But when you do the maths, by their own calculations, they're going to put in about 1.5 billion. That is nowhere near enough to pay for the number of teachers they say it will pay for, which is £5 billion. But also, just in terms of the Treasury analysis, they say that those private schools won't pass on 20% of the fees, the VAT, to the parents. They say it will be about 10%. Well, that is also incorrect. It is wrong. It is about 15 to 20%. So what we're seeing is that actually the parents are getting clobbered because of government policy. As a result of that, the parents are taking their kids out of school because they can't afford it. They're going into a state system where there aren't any school places. And so, again, this is a policy that is completely ill thought through. It is ideological only. It doesn't actually bring in any money of any note, and in fact, according to some studies, it is actually going to cost the government money. Joining me now, Stephen James, an award-winning teacher. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning, David, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too. Where do you stand on this? The front page of the Daily Telegraph this morning, private schools to defy Treasury. Essentially, the government's got it wrong. Their numbers are wrong again.
Yeah, I mean, this is, as you just said in your intro, completely ideologically driven. And, you know, they've taken into account and they're trying to sell the financial aspects of this, but they're not putting in place the educational and the societal aspects of this, which will impact us all. And it's an poorly thought through policy which they'd announced before the election, which they've rushed into being. And what you've outlined there with the numbers is just how it's ultimately going to cost us money rather than help us. And not just that, how it's going to affect us in classrooms as well, because what's going to happen is you've got private sector children being squeezed out of those independent schools and pushed into the state sector, which you've already pointed out is running at pretty much capacity. So you've then got oversubscribed classes. You've then got children who are being forced out mid-year, disrupting their education. So you've really got to ask yourself, why do this now when there are other alternatives that could be explored? They could have gone to the sector. They could have asked the sector, right, how can we improve equity within education and come to conclusions that way?
It's vindictive, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And just speaking from my own experience, I mean, I went to state schools all my life. I've taught in state schools, but one of the schools that I did teach at for a while was right opposite a private school. And I tell you what, we were allowed to use their facilities at any time, providing it fit in, and we were allowed to go use their running track, their swimming fields. They had experts on their staff. We could say, right, can you come and teach this history lesson for us? Because, we realise you've got someone with an amazing degree in this, and they can come and really inspire children. And all those sorts of things will shut down soon as these fees start clobbering those schools.
And that's a really good point, because, of course, what the Labour government doesn't seem to understand is that private schools offer bursaries, scholarships, for many people from disadvantaged backgrounds. As the fees drop, as the pupil numbers disintegrate, those bursaries won't be available because they can't afford them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the children, ultimately, who are being punished in this. And, we've got to really reconsider if your goal, which I think is laudable, is to improve equity within education. I think that's a good goal. This way of going about it, which just irritates everybody and annoys everybody, is I don't know. I can't really. I'm trying to put myself in their place and the logic they've gone through to get to this point.
Well, there isn't any.
I can't see it.
Well, also, the other thing that they have completely woefully underestimated is the sheer numbers of pupils who will leave independent education. Now, they also seem to be labouring under this assumption that actually everyone who sends their kids to independent schools are phenomenally wealthy. That isn't the case. The majority of parents have 2, 3, 4 jobs. They have prioritised the children's education over going on sunny holidays or Sky TV or whatever it is to send their kids. So when you whop on 20% onto the top of that, which may be £6,000 or whatever per kid, that's unaffordable suddenly.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is it's being seen as a punishment on aspirational parents, the ones who are literally giving up holidays, giving up upgrading their car and going without themselves so that their children can have a better chance than they had. And, quite often, and I'll say this, I don't think you get a better education at a private school. What I do think is the fact that you've got parents who are willing to sacrifice in the household for you, for your education, is always going to give you a better starting life, because you've got parents who've got that mindset to go, do you know what, I'm going to improve your lot in life, and it's going to be better than my lot in life. And what will happen when these parents are squeezed out of private schools is they will become places for the ultra wealthy, the ones who 20%, it doesn't matter to them, and it will become even more exclusive, and the gap will widen even further.
Well, actually, what is going to happen is we're going to see a rise in overseas students, aren't we? And of course, what we're doing is pricing out UK nationals from independent education.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, down here in Folkestone, I live near a private school, and I see every day, back and forth, you hear the variety of languages that are going back and forth, and, the British children all mixed in with that, and they're getting great education because they're getting that international education with international students. But you're right, they're going to be squeezed out of this because they're local students, and they're not going to get that opportunity anymore either.
We've already seen 5,500 children leave the independent sector going into the state system. That is not a figure that actually I think the Treasury thought would happen, but also, according to the latest studies, 40,000 children will leave independent education. And now the OBR is saying, rather than bringing in revenue to the Treasury, it's actually going to cost the government money, this policy.
Yeah, absolutely. So each student in state education costs about £8,000. So 40,000 children going in at £8,000 is going to absolutely hammer the state sector. And that's not to mention the ones who've got SEND as well, which cost a little bit more, something near £14,000. And there was a school that I visited just last year in North Kent, and it had a 40% intake on SEND children, because parents of children who had specific learning difficulties wanted to send their children to that private school because they had the specialist care for them. So 40% is a huge amount. And what they're doing is they're not them being a burden on the state sector in terms of extra resources, extra teachers, extra teaching assistants, and all those sorts of things. And even within that, a lot of those parents were being placed there by the local authority. So the local authority were paying those fees to enable those children to access those services and those specialist teachers. So will that cost get passed on to local government? Who knows?
Do you think the government listens to teachers?
Absolutely not. I mean, I've always thought that the sector itself has always been led probably more by the unions than by the profession as a whole. I think that they should have maybe a bit more of a Royal College of Teaching, which is based more on research, a bit more on promoting the value of the profession itself, and not getting political, just talking about the benefits for the children. I've always thought that, and I think the government would respect that a lot more, because it's not coming from a political point of view. So when it's Tory, when it's Labour, when it's maybe one day Reform, you never know.
Really nice to talk to you. Thank you, Stephen. I wish you a very happy New Year as well. Stephen James, award-winning teacher, also co-founder of the Invicta National Academy, which was set up in 2020 as a result of COVID-19 to reconnect children with missed learning. Excuse me. Keep your messages coming in. Steve says, as I sit here at the start of 2025, I have but one hope, that somehow, some way, Starmer and his treacherous Labour government will fail before they completely will fall before they completely betray and destroy our country. Keep those messages coming in, 0344 499 1000. We'll take a break. We'll then talk to Cormac Smith, who's a former advisor to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, about the situation in Ukraine. Putin, also Donald Trump coming into power in just 19 days' time. That's all still to come. This is Morning Glory. Good morning and Happy New Year.